Hello there and welcome to All Painting My Way. My name's Rob. I hope you're having a great day. Right, this is the second video in the sequence of videos that I'm putting together to show you a completed painting, a basic painting from start to finish, starting with the background layer and then gradually working forwards. Now, hopefully you've watched the first video, which was Skyline. If you haven't, I would suggest that you go back and actually watch that one first. But this is the second video in the sequence. This one is actually called Distant Hills. So we've put the skyline in already, and then this video was showing you how to put the hills in, basically just to create a little bit more of a background. And then in the next video we're working forwards, maybe in the foreground somewhere, and gradually working forward each video, just till we've got the completed picture down there for you to actually look at. So this is the second, as I said, in the sequence. This one is called Distant Hills, so I hope you enjoy. Okay, what we're going to do today, we're actually just going to put some distant mountains, very faint, across the back on top of our skyline that we've done. As I say, there's not going to be a lot of detail on these. These are going to be very sort of distant. So basically what I've actually done, I've mixed up a tiny bit of Prussian blue, some ivory black and a touch of titanium white. So not sure what this is going to come out like yet, but let's get the hair out of that. Let's see what we got. Okay, maybe that's a little bit too dark. We'll just, excuse me while I'm off the screen. We'll just put a little bit of yellow ochre in with that just to see what we get. Okay, it's not too bad. So basically all you want to do is just pick a nice sort of range for your mountains. Just decide where you want all your peaks and your troughs. And it's literally just the top edge we're worried about. We're not worried too much about the bottom at the moment. We just want to get a nice edge. As I say, these are very distant, so we will be softening these right in. Let's bring that one up a little bit. Try not to put anything dead in the center of the canvas, because it will look a little bit strange. Always when you've got a sort of, I'm not saying this is a focal point because it's distant, but if you've got a primary sort of object which is standing out, always try and make it slightly off center, because it just helps with the composition. If you've got something bang in the middle, it just looks so obvious, and sometimes it doesn't do the painting any favours. It just distracts your eye too much. But once you're happy that you've got some sort of distant mountain range, then what I'm actually going to do is get a Bear with me 1 second, I'll find another brush. This is another filbert brush. It's a dry brush. I'm literally just gonna pull this down. I'm literally just pulling the paint down to soften it up at the bottom edge. Remember to actually go in the direction of the peak of the mountain, because even the brush strokes will help later on when the painting is dry. There won't be a lot of detail there, but it all helps. As I say, you're just softening this. There's going to be another range of mountains in front of these, so don't worry too much. You just want I'm really pushing quite hard, as you can probably hear on this. It needs to be lighter at the bottom of the mountain, because you're going to get the diffused light further down. Okay, what you might want to do is literally just get a tiny bit of, I mean, I'm talking a very, very tiny bit on the brush of the lighter coloured sky that you had before. And what you want to do, as I say, I've literally just put a tiny bit on the brush and then almost dabbed it off completely, is on some of the prominent parts of this mountain, just along the skyline, along the top of the, just put a couple, probably not even showing up on the, but it's just, you're just creating some very fine shadow, very fine shadow details within the mountain itself. As I say, there's not a lot of detail. Very, very faint. It's just to sort of signify different sort of shapes and crevices within the actual mountain. They're so fine you can hardly see them, but just going on this main mountain and just put a touch of titanium white, because this is the prominent mountain. As I say, it's very distant, so not a lot of detail in there. That's it, basically. Just
You're just going to keep on going until you're happy with it. Something will happen and you'll just think, yeah, that's just right. So sometimes it's just a little white fleck. It can just make all the difference. So let's just soften again. Do get a big blob of paint on, as I say, just blend it out. It won't hurt, it just all helps. So there we go. That's just going to be a very distant mountain. What you might want to do then, just at the bottom, just get a little bit of titanium white on its own, because we're getting another layer in front of this. You basically, where you've got one layer and the second layer, between the two layers you just want a bit of reflected light. It helps separate, it helps give depth to the actual painting itself. So basically you're looking for just like a little bit of mist between the mountain ranges. As I say, once you've put the next mountain range in front of this, you'll see what I mean a little bit more. Okay, just get it on there, blend it all in, soften it up. Then what you'll want to do is just soften that up slightly. Now, a way to do that, just get another dry brush and literally come down like that. Don't do this with a good brush because you'll ruin the bristles, but you're just softening that edge, pushing firm, because you're distorting that white that you've put on to create the shadow, and you're just blending it in. It's more natural. Excuse my hand if it goes in front of the camera. You're basically, as you can see here, you're softening it up compared to the harsh edge that you've got there. Again, excuse my hand. Make sure, as I say, you've got an old brush that you're doing this with, because you wouldn't want to be doing this with one of your nice new brushes. And hopefully you can see it's just diffused it, just made it a bit softer. For that first lot of mountain range. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come slightly further forward, obviously, but we're going to go into more of a green to sort of start to signify that you're seeing a bit more detail towards grass. So basically you're going to repeat the same sort of thing, but because this is distant, obviously it's going to be a lot darker. So I'm just going to be away from the camera again. I'm just mixing up some sap green with a little bit of a tiny little bit of black. And again, this is going to be the next layer. Not sure what this is going to look like, but you want to basically go just sort of into where that lighter colour for like the mist, you want to come into sort of the middle of that. Make sure you leave some of that misty colour there. So maybe this is going to be a little bit more gentle. Not as hilly. To signify as if there's sort of distant trees and bushes and everything. Again, there's not a lot of detail in this because it is fairly distant. This will just be your secondary layer, and again it's just helping bring the painting gradually forwards. Again, if you can see where the white of the mist is, try not to follow it exactly because it will just look like you've got a pattern on the canvas. Try and get highs and lows and sometimes even go over the little white bit, but make sure that you do leave some mist between the two because it's basically that separator. It's what gives the depth to the actual image. Try not repeat patterns all the way along because it will stand out. It does become a bit obvious. Hopefully, as you can see here, you've got the light coming through, and it basically just signifies that there's a gap between the two valleys of the I don't want to say mountain range because it's probably just like a sort of hill, this one. I've just varied the colour slightly on this, not too much because as I say this is still distant. Just put a tiny little bit of raw sienna in, as if you're doing a very rough highlight over the top. As I say, nothing too dramatic, it just helps soften the image and vary the colours. Again, start pressing hard just to blend that all together. Ready for the next range. What we're going to have in the foreground here, maybe sort of a row of trees or something, just to soften it up. But we'll, I don't know, might put a pathway in or something. We'll see where we go. But again, just start to soften that. Again, it's fairly distant. Again, you can probably hear how hard I'm actually pushing with that brush. It's really, really firm. Soften that paint out, soften that bottom edge. And again, like we done with this mountain here, we basically just put a tiny little bit in. I'm not going to use the same colour on here. I'm basically just going to use a little bit maybe of raw sienna or yellow ochre. Let me just find me brush. Again, just a touch. That's just raw sienna on there. Not all the way across, just in certain spots. But obviously these will be more prominent than those because that's a lot further in the distance. So I'll actually get a little bit of yellow ochre as well. And maybe go over the top. And you've just been very soft with this and just blend it together. It will actually mix with the paint underneath because obviously there's still wet while we're doing this, so you'll get different tones because they'll be blending together as you're doing it. But just soften them up and get a nice uneven pattern of tones just so it blends well together. Again, I'll just put a very small touch of Indian yellow in there. Again, you don't want to go mad with this because, as I say, these are in the distance, so you're just trying to get different shades, different contrasts, and basically just get a bit of depth into the actual painting itself. Might just on this main one here, just a touch of titanium white. Just blend it together. Again, you can repeat this with other parts as well. If you do one thing and it looks okay, then obviously you can do it in other areas just to help it. But again, don't go too mad. If it looks good in one spot, don't end up covering the whole thing because it defeats the object of getting depth to a painting. If you do it all the same across, it's going to look so uniform that it won't actually look right. Just soften it all up. again, what you'll want to do is just diffuse the bottom here like we did with the background. Just put a tiny little bit of titanium white on the brush and just diffuse. I can find my brush with the white on. Bear with me 1 second. So be very careful with this when you're doing this. Keep loading the brush. You'll need to keep wiping it, otherwise it will just go like a muddy colour. Again, this is just to diffuse. Ready for the next layer. And hopefully once you've got that on there, we get your dry brush again. Excuse me a minute while I sort my brushes out. And then you'll want to you're basically pushing down like that each time, just to actually help diffuse and soften that edge. Again, excuse my hand in front of the camera. And hopefully there you can see we've got the secondary sort of range in position. And then next what we're going to do, we're going to put the mid-ground in here. Obviously change the colour because obviously it's getting closer to you, so it's going to be a lot lighter and a lot more detail. But that's what we're going to be doing next.